I want to start with a sketch, a watercolor painted in 1869, sitting quietly in an archive that most people will never visit. It shows a robed woman, towering over a harbor, one arm raised, holding a torch to the sky. If you saw it without context, you'd swear it was the Statue of Liberty. It isn't. It was never supposed to be. That woman was designed for Egypt. Here's what almost nobody learns in school. In 1855, a young French sculptor named Frédéric Auguste Bartholdi traveled to Egypt for the first time. He was in his 20s. He stood in front of the colossal seated statues of Ramesses II at Abu Simbel, figures carved 66 feet tall directly into a cliff face, staring out over the Nile for 3,000 years. And something in him changed. He wanted to build something on that scale. Something that would outlast him the way those statues had outlasted an empire. 14 years later, he got his chance. The Suez Canal was nearing completion, one of the most ambitious engineering projects of the 19th century, a 100-mile channel cut through solid desert to connect the Mediterranean to the Red Sea. Egypt's ruler, Khedive Ismail Pasha, wanted the canal's opening to announce Egypt to the world as a modern power. Bartholdi saw an opening of his own. He proposed a lighthouse. Not a normal lighthouse, a woman, robed like an Egyptian peasant, 90 feet tall, standing at the mouth of the canal at Port Said, holding a torch high enough for ships to see from miles out at sea. He called her Egypt, carrying the light to Asia. Some records call her Progress. Her face was based on Egyptian fellaha women. Her headdress echoed the radiating light of ancient sun imagery. She would have been the tallest statue built since antiquity, a modern answer to the Colossus of Rhodes, that lost wonder of the ancient world that once straddled a harbor entrance and did exactly what Bartholdi was proposing, hold up a light for ships to steer by. He sketched her. He built scale models. He pitched her personally to the Khedive. And Egypt said no. Not because the idea failed, because the canal itself had already bankrupted the country. Ismail Pasha had spent astronomical sums modernizing Egypt. The canal, a new opera house, an entire redesign of Cairo modeled on Paris. And by the time Bartholdi came calling with his 90-foot bronze woman, there was nothing left to build her with. The lighthouse that actually went up at Port Said in 1869 was a modest, unglamorous structure designed by a different man entirely. Bartholdi's Colossus was quietly shelved. Here's where it gets interesting. Bartholdi didn't let her go. He kept the sketches. He kept the models. And a year later, when a French law professor named Edouard de Laboulaye floated the idea of France gifting the United States a monument for its centennial, something to celebrate liberty, and not coincidentally, the recent abolition of slavery, Bartholdi picked the design back up. The robes changed from Egyptian to Greco-Roman. The torch stayed. The upraised arms stayed. The radiating crown, once modeled on Egyptian solar imagery, became the 7-pointed spikes representing the 7 seas and 7 continents. Broken chains were added at her feet, a detail almost invisible from the ground, but deliberate, an abolitionist symbol folded into a monument that started life as a lighthouse for a canal in North Africa. By 1886, she was standing in New York Harbor, not as progress, not as Egypt, as liberty enlightening the world. And here's the detail that should stop you cold. The man who engineered her internal structure, the iron skeleton that lets her stand upright against harbor winds, was Gustave Eiffel, the same engineer who would build a tower in Paris 3 years later, using the same principles. Two of the most recognizable silhouettes on Earth, holding each other up from the inside, designed by the same hands. So when you look at the Statue of Liberty, what you're actually looking at is a rejected Egyptian lighthouse, redesigned twice, that almost lit a canal instead of a harbor. Nobody hid this. It's sitting in museum archives, in Bartholdi's own letters, in the watercolor I mentioned at the start. It's just never the version of the story anyone tells. She was never supposed to be American. She was supposed to be Egyptian. America was the second offer.